Excellent. Thank you, everyone, for coming to the 150th anniversary celebration of Ancient New York Lodge. This is a very humbling experience being up here representing Ancient New York Lodge. So I might be a little nervous here because it's the first time I've done a 150th anniversary celebration. So one thing I would like to do before we get started is we have a couple birthdays to get recognized. Stacy and Dan Hotchkiss, if you'd stand up. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Clay. Happy birthday to you. Yeah, anywhere you can find a seat. This is an unexpected large capacity crowd. If we have some available. All right. Excellent. So now we'll proceed with the opening. Oh, yes, sorry. 3 wraps. Everyone stands. 2 wraps is just the officers, but we only have 3. Brethren, I will thank you to assist me in opening a lodge for the purpose of celebrating Ancient New York's 150th anniversary and the rededication of Ancient New York Lodge. Brother Senior Deacon, open the lights. As no man should ever endeavor unto any great or important undertaking without invoking the blessing of God, therefore we will unite with our chaplain at the throne, with the prayer at the throne of grace. Brother Marshall.
Most holy and glorious Lord God, the great architect of the universe, the giver of all who gives and grace. You have promised us that where 2 or 3 are gathered in your name, you would be with them and bless them. Here today, the children of your creation gather in your name. And thank you for all the manifold comforts and blessings that you have bestowed upon our lives. We thank you for the brotherhood, the fraternity. We thank you for the acts of service that you have caused us to perform in the years since the spot was created. And now, as we celebrate this 150th year celebration of Ancient New York Lodge, we ask you to fill each one of us here with thy grace, that enhanced by the true purposes of our fraternity, the morality and the friendship, this lodge will continue to honor thy great and holy name.
All right, you'll now join with me with the presentation of our flag by the Rainbow Girls and the Demolay.
Sailing across the sky. With your gold.
(1777). I am more than just a cloth shaped into a design. I am the silent sentinel of freedom and inspiration for which American patriots have given their lives.
I have led your sons and daughters into battle from Valley Forge to the Arabian deserts. I walk in silence with each of your honored dead to their final resting place beneath a field of white crosses. I have flown through peace and war, strife and prosperity, and amidst it all, I am still respected and honored.
My red stripes symbolize the blood spilled in defense of our beloved nation.
My white stripes represent the tears shed by those who have lost loved ones protecting my country.
My blue field represents God's beautiful sky, under which I proudly fly.
My 50 stars symbolize the states united by the dedication to freedom, love for God, and love for my country.
When I, O glory, pass by, stand erect, place your right hand over your heart and be proud. In return, I will wave to you with pride and honor. Please rise as the flag of our country is presented. singing the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join with me in singing the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, say can you see, I long to be thine, once so high in the air, as the twilight's last gleaming, whose what stripes and bright stars through the perilous light, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the Hartford sinking there, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, sing us that star-spangled banner wave. O'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
All right, at this time, I'd like to re-invite the Rainbow International Order of the Rainbow Girls and the people named boys to come on in and introduce themselves and their suites.
Hi, at this time, oh my gosh, that's so loud. I'm Caitlin.
You're online.
There's supposed to be some, we're online.
Hello, okay.
There we go.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. I am Caitlin Edwards, Grandmother Associate Advisor in New Hampshire.
My name is Jackie DeRogers, and I'm Grand Charity in New Hampshire.
My name is Grace DeRogers, and I am a Grand Representative to Canada, Kentucky, and Rhode Island.
My name is Emily Thompson. I am a member of Nashua number 9.
I'm Jeanette Brown, and I am a member of Nashua number 9.
I'm Abigail Busby. I'm Grand Representative to Connecticut, Colorado, and Brazil.
I'm Seraphim Fowler. I'm Grand Representative to Vermont, Kansas, and Mississippi, and Grand Fidelity.
I'm Alexander J. Newbury, State Master Counselor of New Hampshire DeMolay.
I'm Jeff Rowan Stoff, and I'm the Deputy State Master Counselor for New Hampshire DeMolay.
Yes. Thank you very much. Yes, good. You can speak.
Okay. Sorry. Just really quick, I wanted to bring greetings on behalf of New Hampshire Rainbow and specifically Nashua Assembly Number 9. As our host assembly, you guys have had a lot of influence on us over the years. I remember serving dinners for you when I was this high with no heels, no crown, no dress, and very stained khakis. And I just want to thank you so much for being huge influences on my life. I know we share the building and we see each other in passing a lot, but the bonds that I've made with a lot of you guys have really inspired me and made me go as far as I am in Rainbow. And as our sponsoring body, specifically in Nashua, I want to thank you in advance for all of the support with the upcoming 2 years where Jackie and I will be leading New Hampshire Rainbow. And thank you, congratulations on such a huge milestone. 150 years is insane. And especially surviving a pandemic, watching you guys lead has been a huge guide for us in Nashua as Rainbow Girls. So thank you.
So even though I'm the State Master Counselor of New Hampshire DMLA, I'm going to let my Deputy State Master Counselor speak this morning.
Thank you, State Master Counselor. I bring the warm and fraternal greetings on behalf of New Hampshire DMLA State, and I thank all of you for inviting us to attend this event and for your continued support of New Hampshire DMLA.
Yeah. All right. So I want to start off with thanking everybody for attending this event. This is a pretty big deal, once in a lifetime event for us. And it's a humbling honor for me to actually be sitting where I'm sitting for this ceremony. And I really appreciate everyone's attendance, your time, took time to come out and be a part of it. So I want to thank you for that. On behalf of my lodge officers, it's a great honor to have this many seats filled. It's unbelievable. I've never seen this before, so it's pretty great. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to start with the introduction of Ancient York's officers. For those of you that do not know me, I'm Workfield Master Michael Richard Mader, and sitting in the west is Brother Gary Waters. He's the Senior Warden, Ancient York Lodge. Sitting in the south is Peter, the Junior Warden, Peter Nicholas LaFosse. Go down. We're sitting in the Secretary Station, the Right Worshipful Christopher J. Busby. He is the Secretary of Ancient York Lodge and the Grand Lecturer for the state of New Hampshire. Thank you, Worshipful. Oh, there he is. Acting as our treasurer over in the sideline there is Stephen Carl Bosler. Our associate treasurer is Harold Brodell. Thank you, brother. Let's go down the line. Senior deacon, Corey McLean. Thank you, brother. And Andrew Lane sitting in as the junior deacon. Thank you very much. Thank you, brother. So these are the lodge officers that helped put all this together for this 150th. A lot of work, and I thank you to these guys. And the one special thank you I want to say is to the guy who's sitting right there in front of me to the left. Worshipful Brother Freites is a past master of Tucker Lodge number 99, and he's been, without a doubt, one of the stalwarts of this lodge over the last several years. I refer to him as a Swiss Army Mason because when someone doesn't show up and has an officer seat, he's more than willing to fill in at almost any given notice, 10 to 15 minutes with a ritual book, and he's good. So he is referred to as a Swiss Army Mason, but he is actually installed as our marshal for Ancient York Lodge. So thank you very much. And sitting behind the scene, oh, actually next to the screen is Brother Joseph Olafarovich, is our organist. And without him, this building is just not the same. He makes this place sing like it never sings before. When you're not here, it's just not the same. So thank you for coming, Brother Joe. It's much appreciated. And yep, Brother Tyler, Brother Daniel T. Moriarty, standing in, guarding the outer door. Thank you, brother. And sitting in as chaplain for today, you heard one of his great blessings to us, is Right Worshipful Brian Smith. Thank you. And I believe that's everybody. So next we're going to go to the past masters of Ancient York Lodge. Start with the newest, which would be Christopher J. Busby. Again. Michael Scott Henry, down over in the southwest there. Big mentor of mine. Thank you for coming. We have worshipful Kevin Carter. Sorry, I forgot your middle name. Kevin James Carter. Pleasure to see you again. And then we have worshipful brother Edmund Correa. Thank you, brother Ed. Brother Stephen K. Bosler again, past master of both Rising Sun and Ancient York Lodge. So it's a pretty special class of people there. There's only two of you. Benjamin Feldman, worshipful Benjamin Feldman, over there in the southwest again. Pleasure to see you again. Right worshipful Thomas S. Lau. I know he's here. There he is. Pleasure to see you. And I believe that is the whole list. Mark Levitt. Is Mark Levitt? I haven't seen him. Mark W. Levitt. There he is. Good to see you, worshipful. Thank you. And that's the list there. That's all right. Thank you all for serving Ancient York Lodge and for setting us up to be in this position. Without you guys, we had some tough years when I first came into the lodge, and a lot of you guys have been around for a long time. So thank you for everything you've done. So now we'll have a proclamation for the governor. The governor sent his regrets. He couldn't make it, but we do have a proclamation from, where's Paul Smith? There he is. So we have a microphone for you so they can hear it online.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Very good. The state of New Hampshire, by His Excellency Christopher T. Sununu, Governor, commendation. In the year of our Lord, 2021, Ancient York Lodge number 89, 150th anniversary. Whereas the Grand Lodge of New Hampshire, free and accepted Masons, was founded in 1789 at the William Pitt Tavern in Portsmouth and is one of the oldest in the country. And whereas the Ancient York Lodge was granted a charter on May 18, 1871, and constituted on June 20, 1871 by the Grand Master, Most Worshipful Brother John R. Holbrook, and whereas guided by its tenets of brotherly love, relief, and truth, Freemasonry is the world's oldest fraternal organization and has been a part of the fabric of the Nashua community for 150 years. And whereas hundreds of men of all walks of life, including several of Nashua's mayors and key community leaders, as well as merchants, factory workers, and laborers, and railroadsmen, have proudly called themselves brothers of Ancient York Lodge. And whereas Ancient York Lodge is being reconsecrated by the Grand Master Most Worshipful Brother David Scott Collins at the 150th anniversary celebration on this day. Now therefore I, Christopher T. Sununu, Governor of the state of New Hampshire, do hereby commend the Ancient York Lodge number 89 on celebrating their 150th anniversary and wish them all the best going forward. In testimony wherefore I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the state of New Hampshire to be affixed this 10th day of June, 2021, signed Christopher T. Sununu, Governor.
Thank you, Brother Smith. And we also have a proclamation from the mayor of Nashua, Mayor Jim Donchis. So the proclamation celebrating the 150th anniversary of Ancient York Masonic Lodge number 89. Whereas the year marks the 150th anniversary of Nashua's Ancient York Masonic Lodge number 89, this lodge and its members are an important part of Nashua's past, present, and future. Many of our city's previous mayors, businessmen, factory workers, and more have been proud members of the Ancient York Lodge. And whereas Freemasonry is the world's oldest fraternal organization and has been in Nashua for nearly 200 years and in New Hampshire since 1730. Since 1891, members of Ancient York Lodge and its sister lodge, Rising Sun number 39, have met in the Nashua Masonic Building at 200A Main Street. And whereas the Masons of Ancient York Lodge continue to be good stewards of the community, partnering and helping with fundraising for local nonprofits, the lodge prides itself on quality ritual and Masonic education, and all welcome in the lodge to meet the Masons and learn about the fraternity. And whereas Nashua looks forward to 150 years, more years of the Ancient York Lodge and its members, traditions of leadership, positive personal growth, fellowship, and serving as value members of our community. And now, therefore, I, Jim Donchis, Mayor of the City of Nashua, New Hampshire, do hereby proclaim June 13th, 2021 as Ancient York Lodge Day in Nashua. Congratulations on 150 years. James W. Donchis, Mayor, City of Nashua, New Hampshire. So, sitting back down. So right now we're going to introduce some distinguished guests from New Hampshire Grand Lodge. Technical difficulties here. Most worshipful, David Scott Collins and his Grand Lodge suite, his officers.
Thank you very much,
I'm just one more. I'm going to get Scott W. Newberry is the District Deputy Grand Master of the 2nd Masonic District.
Second of none.
Thank you. Yeah, most worshipful, if you'd like to process out. Yeah, absolutely.
Good afternoon, everybody. So we're going to shortly do a ceremony that dates back maybe several hundred years. It is a consecration of a lodge that we do. We do it when lodges are actually set up and started, and we also do it when lodges have special anniversaries like they're today. So what we're going to do is now, I will declare the most worshipful grand law of the ancient honorable fraternity of three accepted Masons of the state of New Hampshire open for the purpose of rededication of Ancient York Lodge number 89 Masonic Hall. Worshipful Brother Grand Marshal, if you would process us out.
Grand Master and Lodge, Grand Lodge.
Please be seated.
Most worshipful, the brethren of Ancient York Lodge, being animated in the desire to promote the honor and interest of the craft, constructed their Masonic halls for their accommodation and convenience. They are desirous that the Grand Lodge they're now desirous.
According to that, the Grand Lodge will proceed with the processional. We are taught that no man should enter upon any great or important undertaking without first invoking the blessings and the throne of grace. We will therefore unite with our Grand Chaplain at the altar. For the marshal, please possess the Grand Chaplain. Please rise.
Almighty God, who has given us grace at this time, with one accord, to make our common supplications unto thee, and does promise that when two or three are gathered together in thy name, thou wilt grant thy requests. Fulfill now, O Lord, the desires and petitions of thy servants, as may be most expedient for them, granting us in this world knowledge of, and in the world to come, life everlasting. Amen.
So
Please be seated.
Most worshipful, the hall in which we are now assembled, and the plans upon which it has been constructed, have been met with your approbation. It is the desire of the fraternity that this hall should now be rededicated according to ancient form and usage.
Accordingly, we will continue with our search. Which will, Brother Grand Marshal, you will prepare the building and present the officers, proper officers, with the current items needed for consecration.
Most worshipful, in the dedication of Masonic halls, it is an immemorial custom to pour corn upon the lodge as an emblem of nourishment. I therefore pour this vessel of corn according to ancient usage. I scatter this corn as an emblem of life. May the blessings of bounteous heaven be showered upon us and upon all like patriotic and benevolent undertakings, and inspire the hearts of the people with virtue, wisdom, and gratitude.
Amen.
So ordained.
In the name of the great Jehovah, I dedicate this lodge to the promise of virtue.
Most worship, wine, the emblem of refreshment, was used by our ancient brethren in the dedication of their lives. This vessel of wine I present in the normal, usual sonic form. I pour this wine as an emblem of joy and gladness. May the great ruler of the universe bless and prosper our national, state, and city government, preserve the union of the states, and be a bond of friendship and brotherly love throughout time.
Amen.
So Lord, be.
Accordingly, that we dedicate this hall in the spirit of Freemasonry.
Most worship, according to ancient custom, this vessel of loyalty is an emblem of the joy that should animate every bosom upon the completion of every important undertaking. I pour this oil as an emblem of peace. May its blessing abide with us continually. May the Grand Master of heaven and earth shelter and protect the widow and orphan, shield and protect them from the trials and vicissitudes of the world, and so bestow his blessing on the bereaved, the afflicted, and the sorrow, the day of sorrow and trouble.
Amen.
So Lord, be.
In the name of the whole fraternity, and in the spirit of universal benevolence, I hereby dedicate this lodge to Freemasonry. unite with our chaplain in prayer. Worshipful Brother Grand Marshal, please conduct the Grand Chaplain to the altar. We all please rise. Let us pray.
May the all bounteous author of nature bless the inhabitants of this place with an abundance of the necessaries, conveniences, and comforts of life. Long preserve this lodge hall and grant to us all an ample supply of the corn of nourishment, the wine of refreshment, oil of joy. Amen.
So shall it be.
In cheerful conformity of the request of this this law has been rededicated to the purposes of Freemasonry and due in ancient form. Worshipful Brother Grand Marshal will make proclamation.
I am ordered to proclaim, and I do hereby proclaim, that this lodge that we are assembled in has been rededicated for the purposes of Freemasonry. All persons interested will take due notice and govern themselves accordingly.
Worshipful Brother Grand Marshal will conduct the Grand Chaplain to the altar for the closing prayer. Please rise. Let us pray.
Great architect of the universe, ruler of heaven and earth, we humbly invoke thee to give us at this and at all times wisdom in all our doings, strength of mind in all our difficulties, and the beauty of harmony in all our communication. May brotherly love and relief and trust always prevail among the members of this lodge. And may your wisdom be a great source of delight as we solemnly rededicate this lodge to thy honor and glory. Amen.
So it be.
Worshipful Brother Grand Marshal, you will recover the items of consecration. You recover the temple. Worshipful Master, our ceremonies now being completed, we certainly thank you for the honor and privilege of allowing us to reconstitute and rededicate your lodge hall. On behalf of myself, I declare the most worshipful grand law of the ancient and honorable fraternity of Free Accepted Masons of the state of New Hampshire closed in due form. Worshipful Brother Grand Marshal, you will lead our procession.
Thank you, most worshipful in the Grand Line. Thank you very much for that. It was a beautiful ceremony. Much appreciated. So next on the agenda, we have the historical presentation by the Nashua Historical Society from Brother Ralph Smays of Benevolent Lodge number 7. We've been talking, Worship Busby and I have been working with the Historical Society and Brother Smays for quite some time. So this should be a very interesting presentation. So with that being said, brother, I'll give you the floor and
thank you very much. I just want to say, first off, that was a very moving presentation that I saw. I want to thank all the officers and district and the brothers for such a uplifting presentation and anniversary commemorating the 150th Ancient York. So before I begin, I just want to let you know that Chris and I have been working on this remotely, and we haven't really got to dance with the PowerPoint presentation. So if one of us is a little late in delivery, please excuse us. So are we ready?
Not quite. So bear with me for just a little moment.
All right. They did tell me that if something went wrong, I should come up with a joke. And I'm a little bit late in that department because I thought I'd be pushing the buttons, so there wouldn't be any problem.
Sorry about this.
Such happy faces. Hey.
technical difficulties 2.0.
Is my microphone working?
Check.
Okay. Whoa. I am so glad. I used to teach middle school for a couple of decades, and I am so glad you are not a group of 8th graders right now. So, Harold, if you don't mind, I'm going to use your desk for a little bit because I did bring a couple of notes with me. Thank you. Okay. First of all, I'd like to say greetings to all of you. Today, I will speak about Nashua's past. This is your cue, Chris. Next slide. Nashua's past, present, and ancient New York, number 89's contributions to Nashua and its citizens. Okay. I thought I would show you Nashua's city seal before we start, because I understand the Masons like symbols. So the city, as you can see, the city seal of Nashua includes two official birthdays. One with the founding in 1673 of the founding of Nashua, and which was Dunstable back then, and in the year it became a city, 1853. Nashua was originally, as I said, part of Dunstable County of Massachusetts until the state lines were defined in 1741, and it became Dunstable, New Hampshire in 1746. In 1836, it became Nashua, New Hampshire, and in 1853, it became a city. The foreground, you'll see, are there images of the mill industry, the railroad, Main Street Bridge, as well as the river. These are all things that bind us together. In the foreground, you'll see icons of labor and fortitude, horn of plenty, an anvil and hammer, a plow, and a bale of goods, as well as a symbol of modern medicine. The image of two clasped hands is representation of the reunion of northern and southern Nashua. Later on, they have a big fight about where they're going to put the city hall. Surrounding the city image is a wreath of laurel representing the victory over wilderness. Okay. I'd like to show you a map of Nashua, New Hampshire in 1875. And there's a little story that goes with this. As you know, Nashua is located at the juncture of the Nashua and Merrimack Rivers here in southern New Hampshire. And we are looking at it, what they considered a bird's eye view of what it was going to look like in about 10 years. So this was the first publication was in 1875, and a man by the name of Howard H. Bailey. And the second one was by his brother Oakley in 1883. Now, Howard's view of the city is from the north, giving prominence to two large textile mills. And I thought I was going to have a pointer, but if you look on the map over here, it's always good to be a moving target. Over here, you see industrial complex over here too. Now, the two large mills, as the Jackson Manufacturing Companies and the Indian Head Mills on the left, and these two complexes have the largest employees in the city, and it was located on the Nashua River there. Could you pop a button for me? Okay. Now you see, this is where things get a little hazy. What makes this drawing especially interesting is that the railroad station, and could you click again? Whoop, you clicked too far. Should be a little click. Well, anyway, there should be arrows coming up, and if they don't, you have the idea of the happy face. They labeled the Concord and Union Depot and prominently displayed it there on the left side of the drawing. Now, it looks like Howard added it to the drawing based on the plans that were supplied by the railroad company. And the best laid plans, however, the railroad station was not constructed as planned, and Bailey was criticized in the local press for his misrepresentation. Okay, here we go. Next one. I tried, but I didn't do very well in trying to say the word that means beautiful stream with a pebbly bottom. So, as you know, we're between Nashua and Merrimack Rivers. You can click again. The Nashua River was named by the Nashua Indians. And in the Pennacook language, which I don't have a very masterful control over, it means beautiful stream with a pebbly bottom. There's also an alternative meaning, which means land between two rivers. Like many of 19th century riverfront New England communities, it would be developed during the Industrial Revolution with textiles mills operated by water power. Since we were going to be focusing on the time period of the 1870s, we wanted to mention about the effect of the American Civil War on Nashua. New Hampshire played a very active role in the American Civil War, in both in terms of numbers of enlisted men and in industry. Such an industrial city as Nashua produced blankets, uniforms, shoes, and rifles. In the years after the war, the industrial centers of New Hampshire prospered. One more time. Okay. Immigrant workers readily found jobs in the city's textile mills and tanneries. Nashua, by 1836, the Nashua Manufacturing Company has built 3 cotton mills, which produce 9.3 million yards of cloth annually on 710 looms. From 1865 to 1900, the growing industries in Nashua brought floods of immigrants to the cities. Some of them came from Ireland, Greece, Lithuania, Poland, Armenia, Romania, and Russia. But the largest of the ethnic groups to live in Nashua at the time were the French Canadians. In 1870, the Jackson Manufacturing Company employed hundreds of workers. We're going to take a look at some of the pictures of that time period. What you are looking right now is Main Street, looking from the north. And this is in the 1870s. Okay. This one, downtown Nashua, this you'll see is there's a carriage, and the carriage is going by the Masonic Temple. I hope you can see what it looked like. There you go. Now, the next slide is of a tavern. And this is where Railroad Square is today. And we found out something about that tavern. And could you click? Whoop, there you go. Okay. Whoop, you went too far. The Masonic, this was for the Masons, this was one of their first meeting places. I know Chris wanted me to find some places where the Masons went and had some meetings, and this was the first one we found. And I'll get back to you about the tavern because there's a couple other stories there. Go ahead. So we're going to look at an overview here. And could you click one for me one more time? Right there, you're going to see where the tavern is at Railroad Square. And click again. And one more time. This is where the Nut Building is. And this is at Park and Main. And this becomes a very important meeting place for the Masons. Okay. Now, this black and white photo of the tavern, it was erected in 1833 by Albert Greeley, and it's at Railroad Square. Before becoming a hotel and a restaurant, it was home to many businesses with an upstairs hall where first the Universalist Church held its first meeting. The hall was also the Masons' first meeting place and town hall for Nashville. Now, could you just click? Okay, at the top, you see a little figure there. And reason why that is because this building was moved to its present location at 9 Clinton Street in 1928 to 1931. And today, when you look at the building, could you click again? You see this? Nope. Nope. Go back, go back. By the time I'm done, Chris and I are going to really be flowing well. Okay, what you see is that the building today is sideways. And it was remarkable to me that they were able to take that building, somehow pick it up, twist it, and now it's sideways today. Okay, next. Now, this is City Hall and what is called the Nut Block. It doesn't have to do with your mental state or anything like that. It was a man's name. Go ahead. Could you click one more time for me? Okay, the Nut Block on May 31st, 1870, the first communication of Ancient York Lodge was held at the Mason Hall. Could you click one more time? There should be an arrow that comes up, and that shows you where the Mason Hall was in the Nut Building. Okay. The next picture is a closer look at that building. And prior to the residents in the temple, the Masons had various lodge rooms. And for over 20 years, it occupied the 3rd floor of the Nut Building. You can click again. So if you missed any of that, it's right there for you. Okay, here we go. This building, I think you're all sort of familiar with. This is a picture from 1900. And it's a postcard that was produced for one of the 5 and dime stores. Go ahead. Okay. Now, the Masonic Lodge laid the first stone of this building in September 1889. On September the 14th, 1889, Ancient York assisted in the laying of the cornerstone of the Masonic Temple. In 1900, the Nashua Trust Company moved in from across the street. The signature clock has stayed all these years and is now supporting advertisement. Could you click one more time for me? And down, there's an old photograph below on the left. It was taken in the early 1900s there. And as you can see, the entrance has changed and the unique column was enclosed. Can you hit the, okay, good. The one where you see the traffic light, the interesting thing about this old photo is that a police officer had to stand there and change the light manually in order for it to stop and go. Okay, one more time. So we have various places where the Masons held their meetings. In dwellings at the harbor, they were in the old Greeley building and in the old Exchange building. And as I was telling you before, over 20 years, it's occupied the 3rd floor of the Nut building. Okay. So, Freemasonry in New Hampshire, Nashua, has been here for nearly 200-year period, with lodges being some of the longest continuing operation organizations in the city. And Ancient York, as we all know today, on May 18th, 1871 was chartered. And up there you'll see some of the chartered members. And in the last part of the presentation, you'll be seeing some of these people have been highlighted. So go ahead. Now, we've had members of Ancient York, 89, who are Nashua mayors. So go ahead. This is Dana Sargent, William H. Cook, Charles Holman, and Benjamin Fletcher Jr. And we're going to look at a couple of these people and other members of Ancient York. This, we're going to talk about the Honorable Edward E. Parker. I don't know if you can read that small print there, but in 1868, he was made a Mason in Benevolent Lodge in Milford, New Hampshire. I just thought I'd throw that in. Okay. He had enlisted in the Navy and served in the Civil War, 1863 to 64. In 1871, he became a resident of Nashua and a charter member of Ancient York Lodge number 89. In 1873, he was admitted to the Hillsborough Bar at the March term of the court. He also was in partnership with General Stevens under the firm name of Stevens and Parker. In 1876 to 77, he was a city solicitor. 1879, he was appointed judge of probate by the governor. And he gave to the city of Nashua faithful and valuable service on the Board of Education. And he's been identified with many projects that have been employed for the development and advancement of the interests of Nashua. There was one article that I was able to find in the newspaper in 1870 that talked about the Chicago fire. And they said in the article that the fire, there were two things that came out of it. The firefighters turned their attention to potential benefits of fire prevention education and created different styles of controlling fire behavior that went beyond horses and buckets of water. But the thing that struck my attention was that in Nashua, under the mayor that I want to talk about next, Dana Sargent, is that he went to the citizens of Nashua, and according to the paper, called the heaviest taxpayers and most public-spirited men in the city. And he would like to thank more than a few women, and he met them with a challenge. And the challenge had a hearty response. What they did was they accepted donations of clothing and packaging and sent to Chicago, but it was suggested that they also raise a donation of $5,000. So he was being very Masonic, I think, there. His administration of the city, according to the records, were far-reaching and judicious. He advocated for a purchase of tract of land known as North Common, and the city's council recognized the wisdom and of his judgment, and by naming the thoroughfare on the northern boundary, Sargent Avenue. He also foresaw that it was only a question of time in the area which is called Crown Hill. It would be built over, and the city would need a schoolhouse and a fire engine house. Go ahead. So he acted upon this, and he purchased for a nominal sum the lot of what is now known as Arlington Street, and later those schoolhouses and engine house were erected. This is another brother from ancient New York, and some of you might be familiar if you ever go on Amherst Street of the fire station that's there. And guess what Albert had to do with that fire station? Go ahead. In 1857, he was superintendent of the mills of the Jackson Company. In 1862 to 64, he was a member of the legislature representing the city council. 1866, he established a machine shop, and he has, at the one time, the largest experimental shop of its kind in New England. And you can see all the kinds of things that he developed and patented. In 1871, he became a charter member of ancient New York, Lodge number 89. In 1888, he engaged in field work as a civil engineer and architect. Under his superintendence as city engineer, he designed and built bracket shoes manufacturer and several other prominent buildings, including the Amherst Street Fire Engine House. Yes.
Can I just point something out?
Yes.
Brother Saunders was the first master of ancient New York, Lodge number 89. Brother Parker was the master under dispensation. And worshipful Brother Henry, if you would stand up for just a moment, he actually is the current owner of Worshipful Saunders' past master's jewels.
No, I'm glad. Okay. Now, another member who is also a mayor is Benjamin Fletcher Jr. He was made a Mason and Rising Sun and was a charter member of Ancient New York Lodge. He was very active in public life, and he had a wide influence and performed a lot of public duties. He was a member of the Common Council in 1868 and 69, and president of the body in the last year mentioned. In 1869, he was elected chief engineer of fire department and held the responsibility of that position for several years. And in 1880, being one of the very best firefighters that Nashua ever had. He was elected mayor of the city in 1880 and again in 1881. And during his term of office, he greatly improved the hydrant systems for the fire department and inaugurated and completed other improvements that have proven a lasting benefit to the people. He was also an efficient member of the Board of Education. Okay. In the last 150 years, Ancient New York Lodge 89 has been part of Nashua's growth as a city. Members of Ancient New York Lodge stand as a symbol of a fraternity which is marked by their foresight of thought, that is powered by their determination and thoroughness to envision a constructive pathway that will lead Nashua to future growth and prosperity. Congratulations, and here's to another 150 years of growth.
Thank you, Brother Ralph. So just so everyone knows, this is recording and you can go back and find the link. We'll be making it available and you can get those pictures. I know some of you in the back can't really see the pictures that great, and I apologize for that. Thank you, Brother Ralph. That was great. Yes.
One thing we need to add to the scope of that is not too much discussing the term railroad lodge. I think you remember railroad lodge. Trying to figure out where is the connection to the railroad. Well, I wanted to keep this in because it took me a while to find it too, but you mentioned it. Brother Sanders' machine shop was the primary maintenance contractor for the railroad. In fact, two railroads that were here in Nashua that worked. So his machine shop was over near Railroad Square, and his workers worked on the maintenance of the railroad, hence the railroad connection. In addition, another person, Chris Busby, found that one. Mayor, there were four other folks that were stopped on that railroad. So that's where the connection to the railroad came from.
Thank you, Worshipful Crew. For those of you online, you probably couldn't hear that, but he was talking about the reference to Ancient New York being a railroad lodge and its connection to the railroad. Thank you, Brother Ed. So next up, we're going to have basically what is a presentation to the general public about Freemasonry from Brother Christopher B. Murphy called Our Holy Secret. It's Freemason and perennialism. Worshipful Murphy is Grand Historian of the Grand Lodge of Vermont, past master and secretary of Fibonacci Lodge number 112 in Bethel, Vermont, the Worshipful Master of Adoniram Lodge number 42 in Manchester, Vermont, and a fellow in the Philately Society. We have a microphone. He has one. So, brother, I'll hand the floor over to you. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Just a moment, if I could, please. Worship. Brother Jeff, would you mind my seat for him, please? Up here, if you would, please. So, very good. Worshipful Brother Mater, thank you very much for that introduction. Ladies and guests and loved ones, as well as most worshipful sirs and right worshipful brethren and worshipful brethren all, good afternoon. First and foremost, it is my honor to be able to extend the fraternal greetings of Brother Jim Stevens, who is the most worshipful Grand Master of the most worshipful Grand Lodge of the Ancient and Honorable Society of Free and Accepted Masons of Vermont, which is a very nice name, and I wish New Hampshire Masonry had such a nice name as well. The Grand Lodge of New Hampshire is a wonderful title, just perhaps a little bit more gusto next time around. And it was nice to see you. And congratulations again on marrying a Murphy, Brother David. So, well done indeed. So, brethren, I just, again, want to note from a personal perspective, it is always a pleasure to be able to sojourn in New Hampshire. I say without any degree of pandering at all that some of my very favorite Masons are in this grand jurisdiction. So thank you again. And really, it's for a wonderful occasion. 150 years of Freemasonry at Ancient York Lodge here in Nashua. And it occurs to me, Brother Busby, we never worked out a signal for the presentation. I'm going to give you the shooty finger, all right? The shooty finger means go ahead and advance the slides if you would please. You can get it started now if you wouldn't mind. So 150 years is a wonderful thing. And as we look for the next 150 years and indeed beyond, whether you are a member of Ancient York Lodge or whether you are laboring in another lodge in this grand jurisdiction, or if you are a member of a separate grand jurisdiction entirely, it is always important that we remember from whence we came. Because even as speculative craftsmen, we know that no edifice can withstand the test of time unless we are certain of its foundation. And as speculative Masons, our foundation is the philosophical and spiritual underpinnings of our craft. And so it is with that view, again, to inform our labors moving forward so we can embrace the authentic traditions of our craft, that we are going to be discussing the idea, the concept of Freemasonry as perennialism. So let's first define our terms. What is perennialism? Perennialism is that philosophical concept that there was a pristine and complete theological knowledge that was given to humankind at the beginning of creation, and that this knowledge has advanced its way through the years as a secret stream of teaching, in effect. But time does what time does. And as our brother William Preston might have said, the passage of time, ruthless hand of ignorance, the devastations of war have played a number on this knowledge. And so over time, it has become fractured. It has become separated. And so the idea behind the perennialist philosophy is that it needs to be gathered in order for it to be understood, all right? It requires time and patience, reflection, and contemplation. As Masons say, it requires labor. And so this is the idea behind perennialism, and it's been around for a very long time. The likes of Pico della Mirandola and Jacob Bema and Athanasius Kircher and all of these pre-Enlightenment thinkers talked about perennialism. And they called it by different names. It was the Prisca Theologia to some. It was the Philosophia Perennis to others. But the idea of a complete God-given knowledge of the divine surviving throughout the ages has always been there. So what does this have to do with Freemasonry? Well, even though we are in a mixed audience today of non-Masons and Masons alike, I don't think I'm telling any secrets when I point out that the craft degree system is arranged according to an allegory of the building of King Solomon's temple. Shooty finger. Shooty finger. Shooty finger. Three is the charm in Mason's lodges. All right, so it's arranged according to this allegory of the building of King Solomon's temple. In essence, the entered apprentice is in the courtyard of the temple. As the brother moves through the second degree, he is moving through the temple itself. And the third degree finds the brother in the sanctum itself. And along the way, we learn the stories of most excellent King Solomon, who was the king of Israel and commissioned the building of the temple. We learn about the strength and support of the temple by King Solomon's friend, Hiram, king of Tyre. And we learn the story of the beautiful building, Hiram Abiff. And that story is central to every Mason's experience. But that story, shooty finger, that story is really just a chapter in a far larger story that links divine knowledge through the passage of time into the lodges of today. And this story has been around a very long time. The earliest records of Freemasonry are literary records, to about 1390, 1410, somewhere around there, in the form of manuscripts. And these manuscripts tell a story very similar to this. Some people call this story the counter mythology of the craft. Some people call it the poetic history of the craft. I like the term traditional history. So our traditional history, as I said, has been with us a very long time. And from that 1390, 1410, all the way up into 1723, we have literally hundreds of examples of these private manuscripts that belong to speculative/operative lodges that told, among other things, the story of where Freemasons came from. In 1723, something important happened. The first book about Masonry was published by the Grand Lodge of England. It was known as the Constitutions of the Freemasons, and it was compiled by Brother James Anderson. And when Brother James Anderson set out to, for the first time, publicly publish the traditional history, it began with these words: Adam, our first father, created after the image of God, the great architect of the universe, must have had the liberal arts, particularly geometry, written upon our hearts. And there it began. This divine knowledge, symbolized by the arts and sciences, and summarized the fifth science of geometry, happiness and welfare of humankind, that it was nested in the very center of the first man. Now, Adam went on to teach his sons Cain and Abel. Cain revealed himself to be what was known as a false brother and slew Abel. So it said, Cain runs away. That leaves us with Seth, the third son of Adam, who, according to the legend, had the benefit of Adam living with him. And as such, Seth became a master of the art. And Seth went on to teach his own progeny. He went on to teach, for instance, God, who before he was transposed, still alive, to engraved these secrets onto two pillars. You see, Enoch knew that God was angry, and Enoch knew that God was wrathful. And Enoch knew there would be a reckoning. And so he inscribed these secrets of Masonry on two pillars. One was made to withstand flame, one was made to withstand flood, so that regardless of the wrath of God, these secrets would survive to whoever came next. In other words, and perhaps some of you will find this language familiar, Enoch erected an archive to Masonry to survive conflagration and inundation. Now, the wrath came, and it came in the form of the flood of Noah. That was a shooty thing, as we couldn't see. There it is. And in preparation of this flood, Noah, who was a master mason, instructed sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, to, according to the legend, build a floating lodge, which, though made of wood, was according to the rules of masonry geometry. Well, the flood came, and Buzz was looking somewhere else. How is he going to see my shooting finger? The flood came, and Noah and his sons carried over the flood the arts and traditions of the antediluvians, eventually into the cleansed world. So it rains 40 days and 40 nights. They all get off. It's Noah and his wives. They all get off. They offer some burnt offerings. God says, hey, sorry for killing everyone. I won't do it again. Here's a rainbow to prove I'm sincere. And then they all scatter. 100 years later, the offspring of Noah, the descendants of, gather in the plains of Shinar for the building of a city and a large tower. This is the building of the Tower of Babel. Now, the biblical telling has it that this was an affront to God, that these human beings are building this tower to heaven, and how dare they? And I really wish I could kill them all again, but I promised Noah I wouldn't. So instead, the great architect confuses the tongues. So they can't talk to each other, they can't finish the building, and they give it up. The Masonic telling is different. The Masonic telling tells us that the building of the Tower of Babel had the full approbation of the great architect. All right, it was grand design. So whenever you hear that term used in contemporary Masonic workings, know that it has its origin in this traditional history. It was the grand design. Unfortunately, Cowans and eavesdroppers infiltrated the workforce, and God can't have that. So he didn't want to kill everyone again. He had to stop the Cowans sending to the Celestial Lodge, and so God confused the tongues. But according to the confusion of the tongues hindered not the improvement of masonry and gave rise to the mason's faculty, or ability to converse without speaking. And although elements of the mason's faculty are certainly lost to us today, all the masons in the room here know that I could do certain things with my feet and certain things with my hands to communicate to you certain Masonic knowledge. So it's not entirely gone. From there, we find the art manifesting at the building of King Solomon's Temple. There it is. Thank you very much. And as we've already discussed, remember that one of those pieces of the idea of perennialism is the loss of knowledge over time. And the Master Masons in the room can certainly appreciate that there is a loss of certain esoteric knowledge in the legend of the third degree. So therefore, checks off one of those boxes of what was required for perennialism. And I'm the 20 people behind the screen, you're missing a lot of cool stuff, I can just tell you. So from the building of King Solomon's temple and everything that happens there, the legend goes on to the likes of Pythagoras, Brother Euclid, it goes on to the Egyptian pharaohs, it goes on to the kings of Europe and finds manifestation in all the beautiful pieces of art and architecture that they commissioned. Eventually, it finds its way to the grand masters of the craft and filters down to the Masonic lodges themselves. And again, we have, therefore, this unbroken stream of secret teaching, beginning with God, moving through Adam and moving through the patriarchs, eventually landing in our lodges today. That is perennialism writ large. But you do not have to take my word for it, right? Certainly that's my interpretation, but it's based on a few things. If we want to understand how the Masons of the Grand Lodge system felt about this idea of this traditional history, all we need to do is see what they wrote, right? The online archives and the like are filled with artifacts of Masonic literature through which we can understand how these men felt about their craft, what that self-concept was, what that practice was. So we're going to take a look at a few quick examples of how these men were describing their traditional history. Oh, I should say, this is an important point. This traditional history, although we don't do much of it in our lodges today, was absolutely central to craft consciousness in the first 200 years of the Grand Lodge era. For instance, as I said before, when it was published in 1723, it came with these instructions. It is to be read of a new brother, right? So every time a man was made a Mason, he heard this story, and every time a lodge made a Mason, they heard this story again. It was repeated over and over and over because it was central to their self-concept as Masons, who they were and what they were doing. And in fact, you can't find a piece of early Masonic writing. Like the first 200 years, you can't find a piece of writing that doesn't in some way reference this traditional history. Whether we're talking about the whole thing or just parts, like Adam, Noah, Hiram Abiff, right? These elements are throughout early Masonic writing. So it was central to what these men were doing and thinking about in their lodges. All right, now we're going to talk about how they viewed it themselves. The first example comes from 1722. Brother Robert Samber had translated a French work called The Long Lives. It was about immortality. And it began with a 36-page introduction to the Freemasons. Right? It was a love letter to the craft. And in this letter, which, by the way, is the oldest surviving Masonic exegesis we have, it is the first written and published interpretation of Freemasonry. Brother Samber had this to say. Inasmuch as it hath pleased Almighty, one, eternal, unalterable God, to send out his light and his truth and his vivifying spirit, whereby the brotherhood begins to revive again in this our isle, and princes seek to be of the sacred society, which hath been from the beginning and always shall be. The gates of hell shall never prevail against it, but it shall continue while the sun and moon endures until the general consummation of all things. So again, checking the box of perennialism, we have this idea that it's sacred, we have this idea that it's been here from the beginning, we have this idea that it will be here until the end. Moreover, there's this interesting bit about the gates of hell shall never prevail against it. This was a pretty common idea in early Masonic workings, and in fact, there's an old bit of Masonic catechism that asks the question, why is it called Freemasonry? And the answer given is threefold, one of which is it keeps men free from the interruption of infernal spirits. This idea that it is indeed our holy secret. Thank you, Busby. Oops, back one, please. Thank you. Next example was from Brother Jean Theophilus Desaguliers. And I'm not going to say that again because I know that I got it right that time. Brother Desaguliers, at the time of writing this, was the Deputy Grand Master for the Grand Lodge of England. And the next year, he'd be the Grand Master. Desaguliers was a huge mover and shaker in early Freemasonry. Many consider him to be the author of the third degree as we practice it today. And unfortunately, we have no surviving writing by Brother Desaguliers, except the introduction he did to the 1723 constitutions. Brother Desaguliers was writing the introduction to the Duke of Montagu, who was the Grand Master at the time. And in this introduction, he says, I need not tell your grace what pains our learned author has taken in compiling and digesting this. Now accurately he has compared and made everything agreeable to history and chronology, so as to render institutions a just and exact account of Masonry from the beginning of the world to your grace's mastership, still preserving all that was truly ancient and authentic in the old ones. Again, checking off the boxes. We have this thing that has been around forever, all right? It's agreeable to history and chronology and brings the exact account of Masonry from the beginning of the world with Adam to your grace's mastership, all right? Finding manifestation of these secret teachings in the lodges themselves. Again, this is Desaguliers talking. You can take his word for it. Brother Busby. Okay, in 1730, there was an exposure published. Now, exposures were these. A dude goes through the rituals of Freemasonry, and he runs home, writes it all down, and gets it published and makes a dime or two. There were a number of these exposures prior to 1730, but in 1730, Masonry dissected, and it was a big deal. It was problematic for sure. And an anonymous brother in 1730 wrote what is known as the Defense of Masonry. Some scholars think this brother was Brother Martin Clare, who was another heavy hitter. But in his Defense of Masonry, the anonymous brother had this to say: "And for aught I know, the system, as taught in the regular..." There we go. Have defects. Occasion. It's funny that on defects, I lost the mic 3 times. Redundancies or defects occasioned by the ignorant or ignorance of the old. Indeed, consider through what obscurity and darkness the mystery has been delivered down, the many centuries that has survived, the many countries and languages and sects and parties it has run through. We are rather to wonder if it ever led to the present age without more imperfection. Thank you very much. Without more imperfection. In short, I am apt to think that Masonry, as it is now explained, has in some, Brother Busby, if you wouldn't mind, please. You get what you pay for, ladies and gentlemen. Has in some circumstances. You're doing great, Chris. Thank you very much for your help. Has declined from its original purity. It has run long in muddy streams and, as it were, underground. But notwithstanding the great rust it may have contracted and the forbidding light it is placed in by the dissector, there is, if I judge right, much of the old fabric still remaining. The essential pillars of the building may be discovered through the rubbish, though the superstructure be overrun with moss and ivy, and the stones, by length of time, be disjointed. So this anonymous brother, what he's saying is, he's describing that fracturing, like that splintering of the teachings, right? It exists. We need to gather what was scattered. How we have it today is an imperfect form of this perfect knowledge. And therefore, we need to work, we need to labor as Masons to reveal the old fabric that still remains, because it is there, right? This is absolutely the idea of perennialism. And one more example before we get to the capstone of the whole thing. Brother Busby, please. Brother Michael Ramsey, the Chevalier, who, among other things, is really credited to introducing the idea that Freemasons are descended from the Templars. In 1737, the Brother Ramsey is in France addressing a body of Freemasons and has this to say about our ancient institution. The famous festivals of Ceres at Eleusis, of Isis in Egypt, of Minerva at Athens, of Urania amongst the Phoenicians, and of Diana in Scythia were connected with ours. In those places, mysteries were celebrated which concealed many vestiges of the ancient religion of Noah and the patriarchs. So let's pay attention to what he's saying here. He's noting all of these different homages to deity, to the goddess, really. So we can also sort of line this up with the Freemason search for the sacred Minerva or the sacred Sophia. But this idea that all of these places and times honoring deity were connected with ours. Right? That ours is an iteration of that same search for truth. And that all of it is descended from this idea of the religion of Noah and the patriarchs. Again, from the beginning of time, splintered. And let's see what we can learn from the rest. Now, these 4 examples that I just gave, 1 came from heavy hitters of the early Grand Lodge era, 2 came from the very earliest years of the Grand Lodge era. So we can be sure that it was influencing Masonic thought at the time. But I will grant you, these are philosophical points at this time, right? This is a series of ideas. And so to end this little talk, I wanted to point to an example of Masonic action that demonstrates the belief of Freemasonry as perennialism. Brother Busby, please. By 1735, the Grand Lodge of England had made its presence known in India. It set up a lodge at Calcutta, which eventually was given the status of Grand Lodge of Calcutta. In 1735, Brother John Revis, who at the time was the Grand Secretary of the Grand Lodge of England, wrote a letter to the Provisional Grand Master of this Grand Lodge of Calcutta. And among other things, this is what he had to say. Providence has fixed your lodge near the learned Indians that affect to be called Noahite, and the strict observance of his precepts taught in those parts by the disciples of the great Zoroaster, the learned Archimagus of Bactria, a grand master of the magicians, whose religion is much preserved in India, which we have no concern about, and also many of the rituals of the ancient fraternity used in his time, perhaps more than they are themselves. Now, if it was consistent with your other business to discover in those parts the remains of old masonry and transmit them to us, we would be thankful. So take a moment and think about that, right? These guys in England who are the protectors of this system that has come to them in the form of speculative masonry recognize some sort of like proto-Masonic ritual, proto-Masonic workings present in these group of Zoroastrians who call themselves Noahites. The fact that the Grand Lodge said to the Provisional Grand Master, hey, go check out what they're doing, because what they're doing contain the remnants of old masonry, and bring them on back, essentially to make our workings even more perfect, to bring us closer to that divine knowledge that we know we are the stewards of. And they must have found something, because prior to this letter of 1735, the business that was later conducted by the Provincial Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Calcutta, in that traditional history, there were no references to Zoroaster. And although Noah was referenced, the idea of the Noahites, the sons of Noah, that was not really present in Masonic writings either. But then in 1738, the second edition of Constitutions was published, again by the Grand Lodge of England and compiled by Brother Anderson. And in this second edition of Constitutions, we find, Brother Busby, we find the first reference to Zoroaster in the traditional history, named as the Grand Master of Magicians. And, if you would please again, for the first time ever in an official Grand Lodge writing, Freemasons are named as Noahites. And this idea of Masons as Noahites will travel through for the next 200 years. So again, they must have found something in India under the auspices of these Zoroastrian Noahites that was close enough to Masonry that they believed it was part of the secret stream teachings. And so, Brother Busby, if you would, brethren of Ancient York Lodge, as you look again to the next 150 years and beyond, certainly in taking pride in your roles in stewarding your lodge to this point in our shared history, I hope you also continue to look forward, knowing that part of our Masonic heritage is an understanding that what we do is sacred, and that what we do is divine, and that our shared labors as Masons together will bring us closer to the presence of the great architect. So, worshipful brother, thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for that.
All right, so it was just brought to my attention that we're actually doing pretty good on time. I know that was a lot to take in. Brother Murphy, it was a fantastic presentation. Does anyone have any questions for Brother Murphy or any members of the lodge about Masonry or the presentation in itself? All right, well, hearing none, we're going to go to comments from Right Worshipful Brother Scott W. Newberry. Can we get him a microphone?
I was told to keep this short, so I should only be about an hour. Most Worshipful Grand Master, Right Worshipful Deputy Grand Master, members of Grand Lodge, Worshipful Brother Meter, members of Ancient York Lodge, guests all, welcome and thank you for being here. Given an opportunity to speak at such an auspicious occasion is something I don't frequently get a chance to do. 150 years is no small feat for anybody, Masonic or otherwise. And I have to commend them on an excellent program this afternoon. Thank you to the speakers, both informative and interesting, to say the least. I hope my own lodge, when we get to our next major milestone, gets to do the same type of thing as well. I will not speak long, as I said, even though they gave me an hour, I'm only going to take a couple of minutes. But with that, thank you all for being here. I know that the members of Ancient York Lodge truly appreciate everyone turning out and making it a special and memorable occasion. And with that, worshipful, I'm going to be quiet now and pass along the baton to the next speaker.
Sounds good. Thank you.
It is now my pleasure to introduce to you the most worshipful Grand Master of the most worshipful. I knew I was going to mess that up. Let me start over again. It's my pleasure to introduce to you the most worshipful Grand Master of the most worshipful Grand Lodge of the ancient and honorable fraternity of free and accepted Masons for the state of New Hampshire, most worshipful brother, David Scott Collins.
If I could have a couple brothers, if you could just take this building and move it out of the way, and you want to just grab anybody, yeah, we'll just set it back over there. Just make it easier. Sorry about that, worshipful. I kind of took over your lodge.
Your will and pleasure.
Give the courtesy of putting it back. Thank you, my brothers. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, most worshipful.
What a great day to be in Nashua, New Hampshire. You know, what a 2 great days to be in Nashua, New Hampshire, because I was here yesterday. And but again, it's a wonderful opportunity to be here. You know, there's a couple things I want to do, and then I'd like to give a few closing remarks. But you know, something I want to share with you today. So, you know, the one thing we've always done, the Masonic fraternity, we've done a wonderful job of honoring those members of our military because, you know, they go out and make an obligation to travel anywhere the country asks them to defend our right to freedom, to defend our right to meet here today. And I think that's a wonderful thing. But, you know, also one thing I felt and something I wanted to recognize in addition to those brothers is I know there are men and women that are police, fire, EMS. And most importantly, I want to recognize those brothers that are police, fire, and EMS. And the reason why is because I'm one myself. You know, I'm a volunteer firefighter and EMT. And let me tell you something, you know, people don't realize, you don't realize unless you've been into that, you know, when that person collapses right there and has a heart attack, we don't call the military to take care of them. We call your fire, your police, your EMS. You know, when you have that person that gets in a motor vehicle accident, you don't call the military, you call police, fire, and EMS. And, you know, in today's world with the drugs and the challenges we all face, you know, really those individuals that are doing that on the front lines are truly putting their life on the line. And I don't think they ever realize that. You know, myself I started about 30 years ago. I grew up next to the firehouse. And I think as a firefighter, you're always kind of aware going into a burning building, there's a risk involved. But I think it's you get past that very quickly. But I think on the EMS side, you're actually being called to help somebody. People want you to be there. Now, I know there are situations where the vehicle is on fire. I mean, there's certainly things that put your life at risk. But I think in today's world, in the last 20 years, you know, when I started in EMS 30 years ago and we got called to somebody's home because it was an injury, the police department never showed up with us. It was 2 EMTs, 3 EMTs, a couple firefighters showed up, took care of the individual. Well, today, I'll tell you, it's a very different world. You see the police department going to back up them all the time because the places we're going, even myself, down the road a couple of years ago, I got called what I thought was somebody having difficulty breathing. What it was basically a drug house where somebody had taken an overdose of drugs and they were laying there on the floor, an 18-year-old laying there on the floor. And I want to get in the room and I realized kind of where I'm at. It's in the middle of the night. I'm all by myself. So I started to revive that individual, gave him Narcan. You heard the magic drug Narcan. Got the kid, saved his life. He was inches from death, saved his life. The kid gets up and basically calls me every name in the books, almost spits in my face. And the cop goes in. I said, you can take care of him. I'm done. And I walk out the door. But you know what? I'd still do it again. And that's what you do each and every day. And I don't think we recognize what they do. So what I'd like to do right this moment, I have a special pin minted that I want to recognize first, all those Masons that are military members, but as well at the same time, I want to recognize those Masons that are also police, fire, and EMS. So what I'd ask is every brother in the room who is either a member, current or past of the United States military, or a member of police, fire, EMS, current or past, if you please stand for me. And can we give a round of applause to all of them? So what I'd also like to do is take a very brief moment, and what I'd like to do is give you one of my pins, and I hope you'd wear that. Now, this pin was something that I designed that actually has the state of New Hampshire on it. It has the United States flag. You're very welcome. And it's got the square and compasses, so it recognizes all those individuals for what they do. And I hope that you'll wear it as a New Hampshire Mason and let others know. And thank you all for your service, both past, current, and in the future. All right, brother. Thank you very much. If all you brethren would sit for a minute, and Brother Wellman, if you'd stand for a second, and I want to give you this. And what I want to do, Brother Wellman and I became friends many years ago because we got on a committee that we spent 5 years reviewing the Grand Constitution, and we really didn't know what we were getting involved in. However, we got to know each other quite well. And I can remember there was an event held at Benevolent Lodge, at Brother Wellman's Lodge. And it was on Veterans Day. And I thought, oh, that's a great event. I knew a lot of good brothers. I thought I'd get there. And you know what the program in the evening was? Each member of the military was to stand up and actually state a remembrance of their military career. And there are these wonderful stories going around. Then we get to Brother Wellman. And Brother Wellman relates a story. And he says, where were you when the man stepped on the moon in 1969? Well, I'm sitting there laughing, saying, I wasn't even a glint in my father's eye in 1969. However, well, all kidding aside, Brother Wellman relates the story that he was piloting a bomber over North Vietnam. Over North Vietnam, and listening on a transistor radio, listening to the first man step on the moon. That, my brothers, is part of the reason I wanted to do that. And that's why I wanted to single you out, Brother Wellman, only because you did it, because you did it because it's something you're calling. You did it and really didn't think much about it, and it's something you did. But I want to thank you and everybody here for that. And I wanted to do that and single you out, my brother, only to say that really touched me, because I'm sitting there thinking, the man on the moon, what a wonderful event. And here I got Brother Wellman, who relates a story that what you realize is what you put your life on the line to do these type jobs. And certainly Brother Wellman's very humble about it, but I just wanted to not call you out, my brother, but certainly a great example of why I minted this pin specifically for you, my brother. Yes. Yeah, I'm only 49, so I'm still not catching up there. So thank you, Brother Wellman. And thank you, Worshipful, for that moment. Brother Wellman happened to be in the room. It's something I wanted to do. Had our Grand Lodge been a normal session, I would have done that. He's a good friend of mine. It's a great opportunity. But one thing, my brother, Worshipful Master, if I may, we've done a great job talking about history today. And I think it's really important, as we talked about some of the charter members of this lodge, I think it's something we should take another moment to recognize those past masters of Ancient York Lodge. So if I could ask my Grand Marshal, if all the past masters of Ancient York Lodge would rise, and Brother Grand Marshal, if you process them over here in the east for me. Semicircle around. Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you, Brother Grand Marshal. Now, brethren, I would like to, on behalf of myself and the Grand Lodge of this jurisdiction, recognize you as the past masters. Because, you know, we've heard a lot about history today, but it certainly took those charter members to begin this lodge, but it took each and every one of you at your time in the East to support this lodge. And you know, my brothers, you're not here today just for the heck of it. You're here today because you're continuing to support your lodge. That dedication has been very important. And I think everybody we should give all these past masters as well as our current worship master a round of applause. You know, and the one thing sometimes too is Master of Lodge, as I've said, you know, that level of commitment starts and it continues on an ongoing basis. And you know, the one thing that I have the privilege to do as Grand Master is I have the privilege to recognize some of those individuals. Because again, each and every one of these brothers, I know them all. And I know that they personally commit to their lodge and continue to commit to their lodge. However, there is a brother amongst you that was recognized, and the lodge reached out to me and said, we have a member that's a past master of our lodge who also serves in another capacity as the current treasurer of our lodge. And we feel that he goes over and above what is asked of him. And he does this time and time again, not asking for anything more because it's in his heart. And with that, Brother Stephen Bachelor, on behalf of the Grand Lodge of New Hampshire, and by a vote of your lodge, I would like to recognize you with the Major General John Sullivan Distinguished Service Award in silver. You may be seated. Brother Bachelor, was there anything you'd like to say right now, or did we take you?
It's kind of speechless, most worshipful. Never in a million years did I expect this. I will say that yesterday I tried to get my hair cut. I knew I was going to be a center of attention. I went to the barber and he was closed, open by appointment only. And he gave a phone number to call to make that appointment, and the number didn't work. So here I am, a little rough around the edges, but brethren, I'm deeply honored. I never expected this, and I'm deeply honored that you would recognize me in this way. I got involved in Freemasonry because of my dad many years ago, and that was his greatest gift to me, was the gift of Freemasonry. It's been my privilege to know so many fine brothers that I never would have met otherwise, and this means the world. And once again, thank you. Thank you, my dear.
So now, if I could have all the Masons in the room rise, please. And under the direction of our Grand Marshal, we will give our newly minted brother the public grand honors, taking your cue from him. Brother Bachelor, is there any other closing comments you'd like to make?
You totally ambushed me.
You're welcome. Blame that on the worshipful master, but thank you very much. And also to you, certainly my brothers as past Masters Lodge, please don't think any less. I knew you'd love to honor your brother here, but thank you for all your service and continued service to this lodge, because that's what makes it a great fraternity. Worshipful Brother Marshal, if you would possess these brethren back to their seat. That's the fun of being Grand Master, those little sneak attacks we have on our recipients. Thank you, brother. Well deserved. You know, it's been a great day here today. You know, I'm a history buff myself, and I love the fact, you know, that today we got a chance to certainly rededicate this lodge. We heard certainly about the early history of this lodge and its charter members. We heard about the reason really what Freemasonry is about. You know, and I find the one thing I've always found with this fraternity is an interesting thing, and it was referred by a brethren at one point. We all come through that door, maybe knowing or not necessarily knowing what we're getting into. And it's like an onion. And every time you peel it back. But the wonderful part about this fraternity is some brothers will just peel back a layer or two, and they will dedicate their entire lives to the fraternity. Other brothers will peel back more layers and peel back more layers, and always searching for more questions and more knowledge. But it is something that allows every brother and every man of every level. And that's the one awesome thing about Freemasonry. We can sit here and we can have the janitor at Walmart and we can have the CEO of IBM sitting in the same room, and they sit side by side in lodge. And when they come in lodge, they're brothers. They converse as brothers. And when they leave, they're still brothers and they get to know each other. There is no class. I think that's a wonderful thing this fraternity has done. Another great thing it's done, which relates very much to my term, is travel. You know, the one thing I've been privileged to do, you know, I'm the 118th Grand Master of this jurisdiction. And I certainly don't take that lightly. Just like in my own lodge, and I look at here is, I try to take the responsibilities to do the job to my utmost. But I've got to know brothers. I sit here in the lodge and I know many, many faces. But I know faces from certainly in New Hampshire, but as well as outside. Brother Murphy, we jousted a little bit, but it's wonderful. I was able to go over to the Grand Lodge of Vermont here recently and see Brother Murphy installed as a Grand Historian. It's wonderful to actually have a brother that you know, we do not live close. My brother, you're over in that western part of Vermont. And we don't live, but we've got to know each other, and it was an honor and privilege to be there. Then behind him, I see some brethren from Rhode Island and Brother Stefan. I know we came down to Rhode Island, and I get to see you again, continue as a district deputy Grand Master. And I know you're working your way up through the Grand Line. Wonderful to be there with you, brethren. It's wonderful to see your faces, because as we get to know each other, we get to converse, we get to know each other better. It's an awesome thing that we've had in this organization. You know, when we go back to the earliest history of the lodge, you certainly talk about those individuals that were the significant movers and shakers of the community. You know, what we forget is, what about Brother Jim Smith, who was the street sweeper in town that became a Mason? You know, sometimes we forget about them. We certainly like to talk about the people that were significant, but it doesn't mean where they were at their level in their career, what they did in the community, doesn't mean that they weren't an important part of this lodge. The reason this lodge has been here 150 years is because of each and every one of those individuals. It was because of those past masters that stood here and many other brethren, literally in the thousands, I have no doubt, in this lodge that came before and will continue to come to continue to bring the spirit of Freemasonry. That is certainly the love I have for it, is that it brings us together. It gets us to meet other brethren, and it gets us to learn more just about ourselves in general. And it also gives us an opportunity to recognize those brethren that go out and do things outside of this, and they come into this lodge not looking for a award or accolade. They simply come here because they get something out of this. It's a great bond we all have. So with that, I hope you've all enjoyed the afternoon. Worshipful Master, thank you for the courtesies extended to me. Thank you for allowing my Grand Lodge team to come in and do that rededication. It's certainly a privilege we get to do, and we don't get to do them that often. But it is a wonderful thing. It is a wonderful thing. So certainly I hope that for all of you, you know, it's been a while since you've come to Lodge. If you have an interest, because maybe you aren't, you know what? The door of Freemasonry is always open, and we're always a welcoming group. I know it's a great afternoon. We still have another great dinner that we're going to have afterwards here that we're all looking forward to. But I wish each and every one of you safe travels so that when we meet again, and for all my brothers here, I leave you with this. We are at a crossroads in this fraternity, and we're at a crossroads where we've got choices to make, where we've had a rare opportunity to really move things forward in a very, very stern way. But the only way we're going to do it is for each and every one of us to make one little extra effort. I'm not talking about going out and spending another 150 hours, and I'm not talking about going out every night. My wife knows, I might go out many nights, but you know what? That one lodge meeting that maybe you haven't been to in a while, or maybe that one meeting of a pen and body you haven't been to in a while, maybe just show up, not to take an office, but just to show your support. Because I think we're at this point where there's so many great things going on. There are literally dozens of men in New Hampshire and the greater that are knocking on the door of Freemason that want to become part of this organization. We are not in a decline, we're in a growth. However, we all need to take advantage of it. So with that, again, I hope you all safe travels home. I appreciate each and every one of you coming, as well as the worshipful master. It's always a pleasure to be with you. It's always a pleasure to be here in Nashua. Thank you for your hospitality. You guys do a wonderful job. And most especially, thank you to that brother on the organ who's hiding behind the screen like the wizard. So my brother, I'm just going to see, you're fine right there. So Brother Joe, I think all of you know, right? I will tell you this, for the years I've been in Ancient York Lodge and come to Rising Sun Lodge as well, I will tell you nobody tickles the ivories better than this individual. And I was privileged to have him at my Grand Lodge installation. So what I'm going to do now, as I leave you, our brother is going to play us a nice short musical interlude, and so you can really appreciate what that organ can do. With that, I wish you all safe travels. Thanks again, and until we see again, good day.
Brother Joe? Thank you, Brother Olaforovich. All right, so that concludes the introduction, the presentations, and I will now proceed to close. Well, thank you to assist me in closing this Lodge of Ancient York's 150th anniversary and rededication of the Lodge. Brother Marshall, will you escort the chaplain to the altar?
Supreme Grand Master, ruler of heaven and earth, you have graciously allowed us to celebrate 150 years of existence of Ancient York Lodge. But we now ask that you fill our hearts and our minds with more dedication, such that in the next 150 years, Ancient York Lodge may grow, may prosper, and may be a positive influence within our town, our state, and our nation. We thank you for everything you have given us in the past, and we look forward to serving you in the future. Now we ask blessings upon each and every one of us gathered here today. Send us forth from this place, rededicated to service to all. Amen.
Brother Senior Deacon, close the lights. I now declare this lodge of Ancient York's 150th anniversary celebration and rededication of the lodge closed. Thank you, everyone, for showing up, and everyone who is going to be participating in the ladies at the table event upstairs. There's a social hour starting at 4:30. Feel free to hang out, mingle, and see some, shake some hands, and see some faces of people that you haven't seen. And anybody that would like to buy a 150th anniversary coin, we have some available. See Brother Busby, and we'll make it so. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and look forward to seeing everyone upstairs.